presentation mode.
All right.
Come through. Right.
I'm just trying to remember that joke that I heard the other day. I can't remember it. It's probably good for everyone that I can't. Thank you so much, Ossama. Well, so welcome to the OutSystems Australia East User Group. You're in for a treat today because our very own OutSystems MVP Ossama Ghanem is going to give us his first-hand insights, key takeaways and highlights from the Global Developer Conference that brought the OutSystems community together in Lisbon. And he's also going to give us a sneak peek into the OutSystems UNO Upgraded session. You might remember that Ossama built this awesome UNO game in OutSystems 11, and he's taken that to ODC, and he's going to give us a bit of a demo and some live gameplay. So looking forward to it. Now, if you haven't met Ossama before, he's an awesome developer. He's done some presentations on here before. It's very interesting, and he's a pleasure to talk to and listen to. So before I hand over to Ossama, just want to let you know, if you need to go to the toilet, it's just in your own house. And if you have any questions, just put them on the chat, and at the end of the session, we'll go through them and see if we can answer as many as we can. And then pay attention, because we're going to have a Kahoot at the end, and there may be prizes. So without any further ado, over to Ossama for the overview of the conference.
Stuart, thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate the very nice introduction there. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, maybe for some people. Everyone, thank you for jumping in with us today. I've kind of split this topic, as Stuart was saying, into two main segments. The first segment, we're going to be talking about the main takeaways from the OutSystems One conference. And let me tell you, I think this year's One conference has been one of the more special ones, I would say, compared to the last 2 years. This is the third year that OutSystems runs the OutSystems One conference, previously referred to as Next Step. You might have heard of that. But now it's been three years running since OutSystems started this one conference structure. And this year it's been, I think, one of the best ones there, because some of the announcements that were made in this year's conference have been ones that a lot of customers and partners have been waiting for, plus developers as well. And as I go through these updates, you'll see what I mean. A quick disclaimer: if you see me looking to the right like this a lot, I'm using two monitors. So I've got the Google Meet on the right. So when I look right, I'm actually looking at you. So it's a little bit not very intuitive from my behalf, but just as a heads up. And there's going to be a few things I'm going to walk through here with the overview. So I'm very keen to answer any questions that anyone might have throughout this. If you want to just shoot your question as I'm going through the section, then I'll have a look and I'll answer them. Or at the end of the first segment, before I jump into the second part, I'm happy to pause for 5-10 minutes, see if there's any questions on this topic before we move over. Okay, cool. So without further ado, super quick introduction. So my name is Ossama. If anyone hasn't met me yet, I'm an OutSystems friend, as OutSystems likes to refer to it in their OutSystems profile, since 2016. So just under 10 years now within the OutSystems world. I've worked with customers and partners alike, and I'm blessed to have experienced sort of both sides of the coin, as I like to put it. And I had the pleasure to work, with some of the greatest minds in the industry, I want to say, and extremely passionate about this space. Super passionate about this space. So if ever you get a chance, say hi, via LinkedIn or via the OutSystems sort of profile page, please feel free to do so. Okay, let's jump into the content now. There are 6 main things that I would like to touch on. I'm going to start with a conference overview, just to give you a sense of how the conference went and high level and the vibe, I guess, that was on the ground. And then there were 5 key updates that were announced, which I want to walk through. All right. So I won't sort of go through them now, but we'll go through them as we progress through the slide. So first of all, the conference overview. Like I said, this is OutSystems' third OutSystems One conference. In the past, OutSystems used to have annual conferences, but I believe they used to be called Next Step, and I believe they used to split sort of the technical stream from the business stream. So you'd had two separate sort of segregated events, whereas 3 years ago they decided to combine them into one conference. That's where the name comes from, and you've seen more participation. The amount of attendees this conference, this was actually slightly outdated because this slide was put together before the conference in a couple of weeks. There was actually 4,000 plus attendees in the conference itself, which is amazing to see. And of course, as you'd expect, the majority of people will be coming from the surrounding region, so the EMEA region, since Portugal, Amsterdam, even the Middle East, there's a lot of presence of systems there. But it was great to see that there was representation as well from APAC and from the Americas as well. The event was absolutely, amazing. It was session packed to the brim. There was more than 60 sessions over the 2 days of the conference. And just to help you visualize, how everything was rolling, there were 7 stages that was actually set up at the same time. And for 90% of the conference, there would be a session happening on all of these stages at the same time. So with the exclusion of the opening keynote and the closing presentation, all of the 7 stages would have presentations happening. So you would have the ability to jump into whatever presentation you like, or you'd be able to join one and then decide that maybe another one might be better for me, so swap to the other one. So you have the free flexibility to do so. And so you walk into any of the stages and you'll be sort of filled. The seats would be packed. There was a few that I walked into that had stand at the back. So just to give you an indication of how many attendees there were, and also how interested and passionate people were about this, which is great to see. And as you can see, the stages here were labeled. So in the conference, the main stage was where the main keynotes happen. The business stage were more focused on customer stories, and there were panels that were set up to for the customers to be able to describe their journeys with OutSystems and talk about some of their successes. The technical stage was dedicated for the OutSystems specific stream in terms of OutSystems, OutSystems DLs or OutSystems product owners, unveiling a lot of the new functionalities that we'll talk about in a second. And then you've got your community stages. So there were more than 50% of the sessions, I would say, were community driven. So community submitted talks and given as well. So was very, very engaging environment, to say the least. And if you wanted to catch up on any of the sessions, you wanted to watch, if you've heard that there's a particular session you want to catch up on, or you want to just catch up on the conference in general, maybe you just want to watch the main keynote, OutSystems has actually started uploading the sessions online. The time of this user group, not all of them have been, but I believe we're just over the 50% mark now. Eventually, all of them will be uploaded on this link. So feel free to scan this QR code or navigate to this link. If you actually search for OutSystems One Conference 2025 in Google, it will take you to the One Conference 2025 website. But now they've added the watch on demand sort of button to get you there as well. So feel free to do so if you like. All right. So the reason why we're all here, let's not talk about some of the cool stuff that were announced. So there were 6 or 5 major announcements. 6, but 2 are tightly coupled together that I wanted to cover. First of all, OutSystems 11 extended lifetime. So as you may know, in the past, OutSystems has announced that OutSystems 11 will be deprecated in, I think originally it was 2029. And of course, as you may be aware, a lot of customers, especially enterprise scale customers, large scale customers, have a lot of applications built on O11. So they needed to go through a migration process to move from O11 to ODC. Now, what OutSystems has announced is, well, O11 is going to be supported indefinitely. There's not going to be a need for anyone to force a migration from O11 to ODC. OutSystems 11 will continue to receive updates and new features. Of course, bear in mind that there are going to be still capabilities that are ODC exclusive. For example, AI Agent Workbench, that's not going to come to O11 anytime soon. But this O11 will still be a feasible allocation for your applications. Not only that, OutSystems has also announced the unified platform, which I'll touch on in the next slide. But that will also help organizations to sort of bridge the gap between O11 and ODC in a lot of different ways, which again I'll talk about in a second. But of course, like I mentioned previously, no need for migrations anymore. So it's going to be great news for existing large-scale customers which have tens, if not hundreds, of OutSystems 11 applications that are already installed. So no need to worry about that anymore, which is super cool. Very tightly coupled with this is the unified platform. So OutSystems understands that a lot of customers are comfortable with OutSystems 11, but they also want to tap into some ODC capabilities, and they don't want for their customers to sort of reinvent the wheel to be able to do so. And what I mean by that is rebuild their ODC, rebuild their O11 applications in ODC to be able to get that. So what they've done is they've announced the unified platform, which essentially is going to be your single one-stop shop to be able to manage your O11 and ODC applications in the same space. So if you're familiar with the ODC portal, then it'll be a very similar user experience perspective where you'll be able to have portfolios of O11 apps and ODC applications. And it doesn't stop there, which is very cool. So OutSystems also announced that you'll be able to connect or pull data from your O11 applications into your ODC app. So let's say you've got, applications built on O11, you've been collecting data for the past, 5 or so years, and now you want to build an application with an AI agent, for example, which utilizes that data. You can build that in ODC, and then you can expose your O11 data that you want to utilize in that app via the unified platform, and then you'll be able to consume that data as if you're consuming an external data source, but it'll be more of a native sort of integration. You need to go into Lifetime, and there'll be an option to select what entities within your environment that you want to expose. And then from ODC or the unified portal, you'll be able to view those entities that you selected that you wanted to expose and select the ones you want to bring into ODC. And then they become natively available for you within ODC to consume, which is super cool. Additionally, our customers also understood that we're not only talking about data interoperability, but there's also logic as well. So you'll be able to do the same thing with logic. So if you've built capabilities, core services, for example, or if you have a very microservices heavy architecture involved, you'll be able to encapsulate these logic pieces and have them consumable from within your ODC applications. So you don't have to migrate them from O11 and rebuild them in ODC or move them over. You can just consume them from within your ODC application directly. This also followed with the seamless authentication flows. So again, the same theme here, trying to bridge the gap between O11 and ODC. If you've got existing applications on O11 and then you build new applications on ODC, what this integration will allow you to do is allow your users to be able to seamlessly sort of go from one application to another without having to relog in again. So from a user experience perspective, the user wouldn't know that they switched from O11 to ODC, which is going to be as well a very, very welcome change. And as you would expect, this is going to encourage a lot of customers now to start delving into ODC, not having to worry about data migrations and rebuilds and all that. Just allowing them to focus on innovation within the platform, which is exactly what OutSystems is aiming for, and which is exactly what we want to do as well. So that's a very long-awaited sort of capability that will be very, very welcome to a lot of people. In addition to that, something that I haven't mentioned on the slide, OutSystems is also providing all O11 customers with an ODC license. And to be able to spin that ODC environment up, it'll be as simple as logging into the customer portal. And starting from when it was made live in the conference, you'll see a Get ODC Environment button in your customer portal. And it will actually spin that ODC instance for you for free. Now, from a licensing perspective, your ODC commercial environment will share the same licensing limitations as your O11. So I'll give an example here. Let's say, for example, you've got an OutSystems O11 license for 1,000 AOs. You can go and spin up your ODC instance, and then this 1,000 AOs will be shared between your O11 and ODC instances. So you can have, 500 here and 500 there. You can have 600, 400 to your heart's desire. And this will apply to some of the other sort of licensing areas like users, mentioned AOs. So again, making it super, super accessible for customers to start innovating on this platform and minimizing all of the friction that we used to have before and make it super easy to start playing around with some of these ODC features. Cool. Tying into this free ODC commercial environment, OutSystems has also done what we've all been waiting for the past 2 years since ODC was first announced, which is make ODC personal environments available. And I know for a fact that this has been one of the most, if not the most requested capability that developers and SAs and DLs wanted. So the overwhelming joy on people's faces in the conference when this was announced was incredible to see. But as you would have figured out by now, in a very similar fashion, how we used to be able to spin up O11 personal environments, you'll now be able to spin up free ODC OutSystems personal environments. And not only that, there's actually a few additional things within this personal ODC environment which I found to be super cool, which the O11 didn't have. One example is collaboration. So in the O11 ODC, in the O11 personal environment, it will only be yours. So you'll be the only developer that can work on it. However, with the ODC personal environment, you can actually invite other developers to work on the same applications that you do. So you don't have to spin environments individually, or you can even, if you want to work on the same project, it's now easier than ever. You have a 100 user limit. So technically speaking, you can invite 100 developers to work in your own personal environment, which would be super cool. Additionally, one cool thing that I've also come to know, which is very welcome, is now your personal ODC environments will actually be spun up in the same region as your OutSystems community profile. So one of the things that I provided feedback on to OutSystems in the past is, being in Australia and APAC, sometimes the OutSystems 11 personal environment wasn't as performant as I wanted to be. And one of the reasons is because it's spun up in a very, very distant region. So what will happen now is when you spin an ODC environment, it'll actually look at the region of your OutSystems profile, and it will spin up the instance as close as possible to your region, which will be super, super cool. And of course, it will include Agent Workbench out of the box. So as soon as your personal ODC environment is spun up, you'll be able to access Agent Workbench, all the capabilities that's there, start building agents, integrate with models. We've seen the Agent Workbench demos before. I'll actually talk about that in a second, in a little bit more detail. But that's the personal ODC environments. I think this is going to open a lot of doors now to new developers who are interested in OutSystems, even existing developers. I know a lot of existing O11 developers that haven't touched ODC because it's been a little bit hard to get your hands on an ODC license. I mean, it either have to be have a commercial license for ODC, or you'd have to wait your turn to be able to jump into one of the training ODC environments that we had in the past, where it's shared and temporary, etc. So super cool, very, very welcome. This brings me on to Agent Workbench. Now, again, Agent Workbench is a term that I'm sure we're mostly familiar with at this point. It has been announced, made public a few months back, I believe. So the announcement of Agent Workbench wasn't made in the one conference. However, what was made in the conference was it's now hit GA. So in the past, Agent Workbench was only accessible in the EAP program, early access. However, now it's available all ODC instances. For example, the personal environment that I just talked about before. And if you're not aware what Agent Workbench is, in essence, it's a capability that OutSystems has natively introduced into Service Studio, which allows you to build AI agents. So using the same visual builder that we're all used to and love, we can build AI agents natively within OutSystems. and then consume them in our applications as if we're consuming any other service action in our apps. Very, very cool capability, and even better knowing that there's not going to be a difficult or a big barrier for entry, should I say, because there's not going to be any new training that's required in terms of how to build the agents. Of course, there's going to be best practices, and there's a training path online which I encourage everyone to follow. But in the sense that it's all still within Service Studio, we're not going off into another tool to build an agent that I'm trying to integrate with OutSystems. Now it's all within that existing Service Studio package, which is interesting. One other thing that was mentioned in the conference is that, of course, OutSystems wants to push and enable customers and partners to innovate using Agent Workbench. So what they've suggested was that if you're able to deploy an agent to production before the end of this year, then they would waive the license fee associated with Agent Workbench for the rest of the duration of your initial OutSystems environment contract. So I think this is going to incentivize a lot of organizations to actually start pushing agents into prod. And to be honest, seeing how easy it is to build agents, I don't think it'll be very difficult for this to be achieved. And OutSystems, of course, knows that, and that's the exact reason why it's doing this. It wants to encourage us to start building these agents and roll them out into our applications. All right, cool. And then the final one here is Mentor. So we have all heard of Mentor as well. So the term Mentor isn't new to us. However, what was announced in the conference was something that takes Mentor to a whole other level, which is what OutSystems is calling enterprise vibe coding. Now, just a bit of context. We've seen Mentor, I believe, in last year's one conference. And last year, it was the smart tool, which is it's going to embed within the CI/CD pipeline in ODC. And it will do things like impact analysis, scan our code for technical debt. It was going to be sort of a companion of some sorts throughout our CI/CD journey. But what OutSystems is doing now is taking to the next step and embracing sort of the vibe coding culture, if I can refer to it as that. You look at tools like Cursor AI or Lovable, where you're now generating code just by having a conversation with AI. That's what OutSystems wants to do with Mentor, but on an enterprise level, hence the enterprise vibe coding. So what you could expect from Mentor is there's going to be this new interface, a conversational UI interface. You'll be able to converse with Mentor and be able to talk to it as if you're using, some of these other tools. And it will natively understand, of course, what you're saying and build the OutSystems applications based on that. Now, one cool thing is Mentor will also have the ability to detect data sources within your environment. So let's say you're building an application and you wanted a specific source of data, and you've already built this entity in another app in your environment. It will automatically suggest it. I'll say, well, how about use this entity for this particular functionality in your app, and we can consume it directly. So it will have the smarts to be able to do so. And in addition to that, it will also in the future support not just uploading of documents or just conversation prompts, but it will also support things like Figma mockups and maybe integrations with the GitHub, etc. So the potential here is massive, as you can imagine. Vibe coding has been taking over, I should say, a lot of the software development world at the moment. Not saying it's perfect, because of course, as we know, with AI generated code, it's not always perfect, but it is a step in the right direction at least. And being able to generate a production ready enterprise grade application within OutSystems using conversational AI is a massive step. So you can see how excited or how exciting this is going to be for developers and businesses alike, to be honest. All right, so this sort of summarizes the first segment of my talk today. I wanted to pause for a few minutes to see if there's anyone who has any questions who would like to raise about any of these announcements before I jump to the other presentation. So any questions, thoughts? Going once, going twice.
Come on, people. Pop in the chat or just shout out. That's some amazing stuff, Ossama, that they've announced. That vibe coding stuff. I was just saying to someone in the company the other day that, oh no, OutSystems doesn't do Copilot. So that's going to be an interesting conversation when that comes along.
100%. 100%. And I think it also attract a lot of software developers, I think, into the world of this, because a lot of people at the moment are now being they're specifically looking for sort of conversational UI code generation and vibe coding, because just easier barrier for entry. So I can imagine this is going to bring a lot of adoption to the platform. OutSystems does this really well.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Being a grumpy old developer, I'm still waiting for it to come down a little bit in excitement, but
fair.
Still very useful.
I mean, I think the people who jump onto this are maybe individuals who haven't had as much software development experience in the past, where they feel more comfortable in AI developing code rather than themselves, which there's nothing wrong with that, but of course it comes with its caveats.
Yeah.
So exciting times nevertheless.
Yeah. We need to be familiar with it though to understand when to use it.
True. And if Menta sort of functions the way OutSystems has been announcing that it would, in terms of native sort of comprehension and understanding of what's currently in your environment, and utilizing that and utilizing architectural best practices to build your application, then it's definitely gonna take OutSystems to the next level.
Yeah, great.
Alrighty. If there's any other questions, team, I will jump over to my second topic, which is OutSystems UNO Evolved. Now, I'll try to condense this into maybe 20 or so minutes, just catering for the Kahoot quiz at the end. If you aren't aware, and let me just start the slide. If you aren't aware, well, still I mentioned it at the start, but OutSystems UNO is sort of a side project, I guess, that started a couple of years back. The purpose of it was to see what you can do in the OutSystems platform if you sort of try to push it to its limits, to start thinking outside the box. And it did start with this. It didn't start as a side project, you're just tinkering around and another one of your to-do list sort of applications, but it then quickly evolved into something a little bit more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Something definitely a lot of fun putting together and playing as well. So let me walk you through the full journey here. I've presented this in the ONE conference this year. The original OutSystems UNO slide deck was also presented in the first ONE conference a couple of years ago. So it was good to sort of bring it back onto the stage and talk about how it has evolved and align with some of the more recent enhancements within the platform, which is super cool. Let me go through this super quick. First of all, just bringing you up to speed. So like I was saying, started with a challenge. And the challenge was, what can I simply do if I push OutSystems platform to its limits? What can we do when we sort of use out-of-the-box capabilities? So we're not talking about integrating with JS libraries or external CSS style sheets or bringing in Forge components. Just strictly out-of-the-box OutSystems. What OutSystems allows me to do out-of-the-box. What can we do with that? And that's what sort of kickstarted this OutSystems UNO journey. And of course, the result was OutSystems UNO, which is in essence a rebuild of the OutSystems of the UNO game in OutSystems. So from the UI to the game engine, everything has been rebuilt within O11 back then. And it is still available to this moment in the O11 Forge. Now, if you want to catch up, so as I was mentioning, the first sort of introduction to OutSystems UNO was done in the ONE conference 2 years ago. The recording of that can be found over here if you're interested in watching it. It will essentially cover exactly how OutSystems UNO was built, including the UI, the game engine, the data model, and the reasoning on some of the architectural decisions, which ultimately allow me to put the game together. So if you're interested in this low-level detail, I would encourage you to watch this session. But if I can help you visualize the journey, so a couple of years back, when it was first sort of presented, the three key sort of features, I guess, or takeaways, were the robust game engine and interactive UI, versus mode, which was essentially you versus the CPU, and then mobile responsiveness, being able to actually play the game on mobile, tablet, or web. And what has evolved right now is three main things. First of all, ODC migration, so migrating the entirety of the app from O11 to ODC. The introduction of multiplayer mode, so the ability to play versus other users, again, fully native within the platform, and I'll talk about how it's able to achieve that. And then thirdly, AI importance, so utilizing the new AI agent workbench to create an agent that I can play against, which adds a bit more reasoning and logic to the plays, rather than before the versus mode, which was just essentially selecting the first random card that you can play. That wasn't the thinking of the. That's how the versus CPU functioned. So the two that I want to focus on today are the AI, is the AI integration, and the multiplayer mode. So let's start with the AI first. There were two key things that had to be factored in for this AI capability to work. One, obviously, we need to integrate with an AI model. So the whole point here is for us to communicate to the AI the status of the game and what's currently happening, and let the AI choose from their cards the one they want to select and play. So there had to be an integration with an AI agent. And the second thing is, since we're going to be integrating with an AI agent, then this just unlocks the ability for us to take it to the next level and introduce difficulty and reasoning. So before, when it was versus mode, it was just versus the CPU, and again, just selecting a card at random, which was valid to play. But now we can select the level of difficulty of the AI opponent you play against. So as I'm going to explain as I go through the slides, there's going to be three difficulties that you can select from. In addition to that, the AI will also return a reason alongside the card that they have selected to play. And the reason for that is it'll just give us an indication of how the AI is thinking and why it played that card. And it'll make a little bit more sense when I show you some of the screenshots here. But let's go through this one by one. So first of all, how is the AI model integrated? Well, of course, OutSystems Agent Workbench. We've talked about what it is, so I'll not delve into a lot of details. But in essence, the Agent Workbench compromises, or the agent that you build in the Agent Workbench comprises of three main components: your AI model, your grounding data, and the memory. So the AI model is, of course, whether that's GPT 4.0, whatever AI model they want to integrate with. The grounding data, which is in essence the context that you want to provide the agent with, and I'll show you what that is exactly for OutSystems UNO. And then the memory. So in order for the agent to remember what has been played before, we want to store that in the memory, so the agent can always refer to that when needed. And this makes it a little bit more easier for the agent to sort of have a full grasp of what has happened so far, rather than telling it every single time, right? If we unpack that a little bit more detail, and if you've ever sort of built an agent with an Agent Workbench, you'll be familiar with this flow. Again, not going into super low-level details, but in essence, we first fetch the grounding data. I will unpack what that is exactly in a second. We then construct the messages that we want to send through to the agent. In this particular example, our agent that we're using is GPT 4.0. And then we get back the response from the agent and store it in the memory. So when we get that data back in the memory and we call the agent again, in this build messages step, we get the data from the memory, add that to the messages that we want to send through, and then fire it away to the agent. Okay, so that's how it works on a very high level. And the grounding data that we use actually compromises of a few things, of three main things, I should say. One, the rules of OutSystems. So the agent needs to know how to play the game. So in order for it to actually correctly select the card from the valid cards, it needs to be able to know what card to select in essence. So it needs to be able to know things like what cards are the valid ones depending on the card that's being discarded. How do you win the game? What are the valid combinations? Additionally, OutSystems UNO, there's a couple of minor omissions in the OutSystems UNO game compared to the actual UNO game. So also mentioning those in the rules as well. Now, that's the first part of the grinding data. The second part is the difficulty and traits, and I'll also showcase that in a second. But in essence, letting it know that there's going to be 3 levels of difficulty. There's going to be a level 1, which is beginner. There's going to be a level 2, which is intermediate, and it's going to be a level 3, which is an expert. And I will actually show you these exact traits in a second. But in essence, we're telling the agent here that if you're for example, a level 1 player, if I tell you that you're a level 1 player, then these are the following traits that I want you to follow. For example, not knowing when to best strategically play a +4 card, for instance, or not knowing what the best strategy is to win the game. These are some examples that the traits would be. And then finally, the output rules. So once the agent sort of decides what card he wants to play, I want the agent to return their response in the strictly formatted JSON structure. Now, I want to mention a quick note here. What we're currently doing in this capability is we're getting this JSON back from the agent, deserializing it, and then taking the values and using them within our application. So that's how it's actually talking to the application. OutSystems has recently evolved the call agent function within the agent workbench, which actually abstracts this step. So when you build an agent now, you don't actually need to tell it to return a specific structure. You can give the agent tools, or in the OutSystems world, give the agent access to server actions. These server actions will have specific input parameters, and if you document your server action and your input parameters correctly, then the agent will automatically be able to call the server action and populate the input parameters accordingly. So this can be abstracted into the service action. So we don't have to take it, deserialize it, and then pass it through. It can just call the server action for playing the card, for example, immediately. Okay? So that's the grounding data that was provided. We go into the prompt. So the prompt actually consists of, I believe, 6 segments. The first one is the context setting. So letting the agent know what level they are, and also letting them know how many players and the direction of play. The second part of the prompt is letting the agent know the top discarded card. So letting it know, for example, the top discarded card is a yellow skip turn card. So that means that all of the other yellow cards you have in your hand and any skip turn cards in your hand are valid cards to play. Thirdly, the cards in the agent's hand. So there'll be a list of the cards that the agent currently has, of course, and it will be just broken down into the color and the number alongside the index of the card itself. And the reason why we provide the index is we wanted the agent to tell us the card they want to play via that index. So for example, if they wanted to play the blue 1, it would then just return index 4, for instance. Next, the card counts. So letting the agent know how many cards each other opponent has. And this is important because, of course, in UNO, the way you win is when you get rid of all the good cards. So agents, especially the expert agents, can build strategies around that. And the reasoning it provides will actually show you that as well. Before the last one, around history, so letting you know what has been played so far. And then finally, the ask. So what are we telling it to do? So the ask would be strictly following the rules of OutSystems UNO, which, as you recall, will be provided to the agent as part of the grounding data. Which card should I play from the list of valid cards in my hand that reflects my difficulty level traits? We'll get into level traits in a second. But that's how the prompt is engineered and sent to the agent. Now, you might ask, why do we have to provide the agent a round history if it has memory? So you would know what has been played before. Why do you have to give it the full round history every single time you ask for the card to play? And that'll be a very valid question. And the reason for that is every agent, every AI opponent that you play against is a separate agent instance. So if I'm playing against 3 opponents, I'm actually playing against 3 AI agents. The reason why that's the case, the reason why it's not 1 agent behind the scenes, is because if we store all of the cards that the agents have in the prompt, like we have over here, it's actually going to know what the other player has. So it's technically the agent's going to cheat, because it's going to know that player 1 has these cards and player 2 has these cards. So what I've done is I've separated each agent by player, so it will only ever have the visibility of the cards in its hand, and that way it will never be able to quote unquote cheat. So because they're separated, we have to provide the round history every time, because there would have been 2 or 3 rounds that have passed until it's back and the turn of the that particular player or the particular AI agent. So we have to tell it what has been played so far. So that's why we have to provide that information. All right, moving swiftly on into the integration. So there is a side property in the game which you can now turn on, and this will make this AI logs tab available. And in this AI logs tab, you will be able to see every time an agent plays a card, you'll be able to see the session ID of a particular agent. You'll be able to see the prompt that was sent through to the agent, and then you'll be able to see the response that it returned. So in this particular example, you can see that I was playing against an expert opponent. So it says I'm an expert level 3 player. You can see that it has a total of 7 cards, and it lists out what the 7 cards are. It then goes ahead and mentions the counts of the cards that each player has, and then the history of the round. So far, player 1 played a yellow skip card, and it seems like this is the second turn, because this was the only previous play there. And the response of the AI wanted to play card index 0, which is a change color wildcard, and it selected the color red. And the reasoning is, as an expert player, I'll use the wildcard to change to red, since I have 2 red cards in my hand, the 5 and the 4. This gives me more options for future plays or potentially disrupting other players who may be short of red cards. So you can see how the agent actually comes up with a proper reasoning and to play these particular moves rather than just a random move, right? So focusing on the levels a little bit, the 3 levels that I mentioned before, the beginner, intermediate, and expert, and these are the traits that I passed through, into the grounding data. And these are just examples of the traits. There's maybe 10 or 12 traits for each difficulty, but in this particular instance, we can see that a beginner trait follows the basic rules, but might forget special card functions. It plays cards based on color, not on number matching or strategy. Whereas, for example, if you look at the expert one, tracks cards in opponent's hands and predict plays, set traps by forcing opponents to draw or change color at the worst time. So you can see here that the range of difficulty actually increases significantly between beginner and expert, and you can actually feel that in the game. So based on my testing, games against expert AIs take way longer than if I was playing against the beginner, because I actually know what they're doing, and there is actual reasoning behind the plays that they're doing, which is interesting to see, which was cool to be able to put together and have it work correctly. So that was AI. That was the integration of AI into OutSystems UNO. The second aspect here is multiplayer, which again was one of these features which was requested in the first one conference. So I had a question that was asked to me in the session itself, was how hard was it to put how hard is it to build multiplayer? Well, 2 years later, here we are. Multiplayer is part of OutSystems UNO, and let's see how it was put together. So there were 3 main challenges with adapting OutSystems UNO into multiplayer game mode. First one is real-time synchronization. So obviously, if I'm playing against an opponent and the opponent plays a card, I need to sync that into my game and have my game be refreshed so I can see that card. So real-time synchronization. And when you layer on top of that is the strictly out-of-the-box capability, I can't use things like WebSockets or pub-sub mechanisms, etc., because I'll be cheating. I want something strictly outside the box. So that's one. 2, joinable games. So now that users can join other users' game, then we need to open up the games to make them publicly accessible. However, at the same time, making sure that no one can jump into any other's game without being, properly vetted. So we had to figure that piece out. And then thirdly, adaptable UI and data set. So another question that was asked in the first OutSystems UNO presentation a couple of years back is, can you sort of prevent cheating? Because I can technically inspect the browser, and I can see in the network tab of my developer tools, I can see the data that's coming through into your page, and I can see the cards that your opponents have. So I can technically cheat. So is there a way to prevent that? And that was something that, of course, 100% needed to be mitigated for multiplayer mode, because otherwise I'll just inspect my browser and see what cards my player has and use that as my strategy. So that was the third challenge, and we're able to sort of check off all of these challenges, and let me show you how that was done. So first off, real-time synchronization. The way we actually put this together is very simple. Build a web block. The web block is called an interval web block, and it has two key client actions. It's got your onReady event, which essentially just kicks off a JavaScript interval. And this JavaScript interval fires every X number of seconds. I think by default I have it as 1.5 seconds. And every time it fires that interval, it actually triggers an event which then creates this, raises the event to the parent, which is the game, and then we can handle it accordingly. So what's actually happening behind the scenes is, in the game itself, when this interval is triggered, then the handler of the event refreshes the data model on the screen, or refreshes the entity, I should say, on the screen. And that way, it always keeps my game updated. So if it has been updated if the data has been updated by another user, I can actually see it reflected here. Now, you might ask, and very rightly so, what are the impacts of this on performance and best practices? And of course, in an ideal world, if we're building a production-ready application here, of course, we'll be using mechanisms like WebSockets or PubSub, because that's the more architecturally correct way to do it. But given the challenge at hand, and keeping it a little more fun and keeping it within the limits of the platform, this was sort of the best approach. But there were also optimizations that have been implemented as well to minimize, just firing off and refreshing the database every second or so. So the first one being, only want to be refreshing if it's my opponent's turn. So if it's my turn, there's absolutely no need to refresh the data. It's my turn, so there's nothing going to change unless I play. So there's no need to do that there. Of course, when we transition into the scores phase, there's no need to refresh the data there. And an idle timeout as well. So after, I think 2 minutes is what's set at the moment. After 2 minutes, if the opponent has not played, then you'll see this pop-up appear, and you'll say your opponent is idle. You can refresh the page to continue waiting, or you can go back home and jump into a new game. So it will give you that capability to sort of pause it, and that way we're not endlessly sort of refreshing the entity. Joinable games. The concept of lobby was created. So in essence, once you create a new multiplayer game, you'd be able to join a lobby, and you'll have a code associated to your game. And as a user who wants to join into a game, you can go to a join game, enter your name, enter the game code, and if it's still open and there's spaces in the lobby, you can join that game. So that's how we sort of lock down the games in a little bit more of a secure fashion. And then finally, adaptable UI and data sets. So once in a game, of course, if I'm player 1, at the bottom of my screen, I want to see my cards. And if I'm player 2, at the bottom of my screen, I want to see player 2's cards. Whereas in the past, because there was no multiplayer game mode, you would always see sort of player 1's cards, because assumption was you're always going to be player 1 in whatever game mode you play. In addition to that, in multiplayer mode, we're not fetching any information about the opponent's cards into the client. And that way we completely mitigate the ability to cheat in the game. The only thing we're getting back is the player's name and the number of cards they've got. And that's about it. All right. This is the spot where I am supposed to show a demo here, but I do see the time, and I do see we only have 5 minutes left. And there's a Kahoot quiz with prizes. So what I'm going to do is, rather than actually demoing the application right now, I will redirect you to the actual session in the ONE conference, where I did a demo for not only the AI mode, but also the multiplayer mode, where it was super fun. We had 3 members of the audience join a game of multiplayer and kind of played against each other. And the demo there goes for around 15 minutes or so. So just to respect your time, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to hand over back to yourself, Stuart and Maj, and I will share with you after the call the link to the session, so you're able to do that. And I just wanted to confirm, Stu and Maj, we do have sort of the email addresses of our attendees here today. Is that correct? So we'll be able to send up an email of the link if you wanted to. Do we know?
I don't know, Margaret.
Yeah, that'll be tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So I will share that link and then we'll have it sent through via email. But really appreciate the opportunity. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer in parallel over chat, or if you want to connect over LinkedIn. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Ossama. Just join me in thanking Ossama for an awesome presentation of the overview of the conference and the OutSystems UNO app. Do we have any questions?
I think everyone's just wants to play for the prizes at this stage.
All right. Now, who's sharing the? Margaret, are you sharing that?
My screen, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ooh, spooky. All right, so everyone, yeah, go to Kahoot, put in the game pin, and we'll get started with the Kahoot shortly. And, you know, the questions could be from anything at all that Ossama says. Anything. It's good to see that Kahoot has got real live images of people's faces too now. That's an update they've recently made. I told you you'd regret having me as host. All right, we'll give it one more minute and then we're off. All right. Oh, so Ossama's only be able to beat expert mode once. All right. Yes. All right then. I think we might be ready to get started. Yell out if you're still having trouble joining, but otherwise we're going to get going.
All right. Let me press the start button.
So I'm doing the reading out of the questions. Is that right, Margaret?
Yeah.
That's my job. Okay. Look out. What major update was announced regarding OutSystems 11? Was it? It'll be replaced by ODC in 2026. Continue to receive updates and features indefinitely. No longer receive updates. Only be supported for enterprise customers. Ooh, what was it? It's exciting. And everyone got it right. Continue to receive updates and features indefinitely.
It's worth mentioning as well that the speed of your answer plays a factor in your scores, so that's why Seb is in the lead. despite everyone answering the correct answer. So.
Thanks, Ossama. If we had a good host, they would have mentioned that, but unfortunately we don't.
You're incredible this way.
Oh, you're very kind. The check's in the mail. Right, next question. Well done, Seb. What is the purpose of the unified platform? Is it to replace OutSystems 11 entirely, to combine management of OutSystems 11 and ODC app platforms into one platform, to migrate all OutSystems 11 apps to ODC, or to host third-party apps? And I talk too slow. And 6 right and 1 didn't pay attention. So have a good, long, hard look at yourself and do better next time.
I told Ossama to have a character limit for the responses, because last time, yeah, I had some moments where I just don't read the options.
If only Ossama had listened. Right, no, it's all good. Space Dragon has shot to the top and Seb in second. Right, nice work. Space Dragon, hey? True or false? OutSystems 11 data and applications can be accessed from ODC via the unified platform. What is it? And the correct answer is true. Well done, everyone. Good to see. Oh, Seb's back at the top. Sorry about that, Space Dragon. Otherwise, staying pretty solid. And Victor, highest answer strict. What is the major benefit of the ODC personal environment? It requires a paid subscription. It's only for enterprise accounts. Developers can collaborate and invite others to build apps together. It expires after 30 days, regardless of activity. Ooh, number 7. What? Sorry, 7 people. What am I doing? I don't know. Seb, well done. Space Dragon, what's happening? And CH is shot up to second. Look out. Victor, still highest answer streak. Okay. How long will an ODC personal environment remain active? 30 days, 6 months, as long as applications are being published until a new version of ODC is released. What could it be? Until Halloween. And it is as long as applications are being published. Right. Ooh, who's going to catch Seb? I don't know. All right, now Viola's got a streak. What's going on, Victor? What new feature will be included in the ODC personal environment? AI Workflow Studio, Agent Workbench, Mentor Pro, or Enterprise Hub? And yes, of course, it's Agent Workbench. Why, Ossama, why do people pay attention to your talks and not mine?
I think I just made the quiz way too easy, mate.
That's nice of you to say. So let's just go with that. CH is not Seb. What's Seb? Seb has kind of had a little bit of an ADHD moment, and as CH has managed to get to the top. Did I say things are going to be politically incorrect? Well, there you go. All right, let's see. I think if we've got one more question. No, we've got 10 questions. All right, so 4 to go. What is one key advantage of Agent Workbench? It requires advanced coding knowledge. It can deploy agents in minutes and supports multiple AI models. It's only available to beta users. Separate paid tool. Yes. Agents in minutes and multiple AI models. I feel bad for you that you have to listen to me All right. Where are we? CH on fire and has a streak with 7 correct answers. Okay, everyone, what's it going to be? 3 questions to go. Agent Workbench requires a separate license fee for all deployments. True or false? Of course, it's false. Ooh, look out, CH Space Dragon. It's catching. Although Seb's got an answer streak. All right, let's go. What new capabilities will Mentor gain? Support for vibe coding, integration with GitHub Actions, cloud-only deployments, auto-translation of code comments. What is it? What could it possibly be? And it's the vibe. It is. That's what we're all waiting for. All right. CH. Well, you're only 6 ahead. This is anyone's race, apart from possibly Victor's. So let's see. Come on, Victor, you can do it. What types of inputs will Mentor support to help create applications? Only code snippets, documents, Figma mockups and prompts, JSON files only OutSystems modules. I think even I know the answer to this. Yes. Fortunately, I was wrong. But well done. Of course, it's documents, Figma mockups and prompts. All right, next.
That's the last question.
Ooh, all right, number 3. CH is number 3. Seb, number 2. Who's this? Space Dragon smashed it. Space Dragon came from behind, was sitting there like they were drafting in a marathon race, and then just shot up to the top. So if Space Dragon, if you could please, so Margaret, do all 3 of them, or
Correct.
is it just Space
All
Dragon?
3 of them, please email me. Send my email address on the chat, and yep, I'll respond to ask some questions, more questions.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for staying, and I hope you've learnt a lot. If you are interested, if you have any ideas that you would like to present to the community, please get in touch. We're always looking for new things that people are interested in. And 100% Mike, yeah, of course. Yeah, we want Mike to come and speak as well. We just want to review your jokes first before you present. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks all.